is Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin. And today I am presenting one of the nicest guys in the business, as well as one of the most talented. He's back with and I can't even believe I'm saying this, but he's back with his 11th solo release, simply called Shades. It's out on March 4th. And most of you, I'm sure, know him from his great band, King's X. He is the guitarist of King's X and the guitarist of Shades. He is Mr. Ty Tabor. Ty, how are you?
Doing great. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or good noon.
Yeah, or good whatever time people are watching it, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Ty, like I said, man, it is unbelievable to me that you have 11 solo records at this point. It just doesn't seem like we're old enough to have that much music out there.
You're right. I've actually been thinking about that this week quite a bit. Just I turned 60, a few months ago, and it's still just messing with me that I've been doing this long and I'm still doing it. Luckily, get to still do it. And it has been a long time, and I hope it's a lot longer.
Absolutely, man. Well, if you keep putting out records like Shades, it should be a lot longer. This is in one sense, it's a fun record. In another sense, it's an emotional record. It seems like you covered a lot of ground on this one, that a lot of musical ground and a lot of creative ground that even after 11 records, I don't think you've tackled a lot of this before.
I think you're right. That sort of was my goal. I wanted to try to find some new ground. I'm always trying to push myself to do something I'm not quite as comfortable doing. Mm-hmm. Don't be lazy. Try to just see what else comes out. And I was certainly looking for some new ground on a lot of this. And then some of it is kind of straight ahead too, but it's the overall package is kind of a good mix of a lot of different things. Try not to make it a one-dimensional record. Sure,
certainly, man. Well, the one thing I was reading the press release when I was listening to the record, and it lists bands that are influences, and it lists all the stuff that comes in publicity. The one band it doesn't list, which I've always thought has been an influence to you, especially your vocal sound, is the Beatles. It just seems like you have that harmonic sound to your voice that clearly the Beatles sort of introduced. How important were they to you, or what influence does a band like the Beatles have to you, not only as a performer, but as a writer too? Because you do seem to write from that emotional place that the Beatles wrote from late in their career.
Yes, the Beatles are my number one influence musically, period, hands down, by far. I grew up as a kid. I fell in love with the Beatles when I was almost 3 years old. A friend of mine, this is one of my earliest childhood memories and is my earliest musical memory in my life. A friend of mine, for his birthday, got one of those little square, record players. We're talking, this is way back in the 60s, early 60s, when there were just these little square things with a speaker built in the box, and that was your record player. And he got one of those for his birthday, and he got the single, I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. And I remember us playing that just over and over and over and over, and really freaking out on it for some reason, just loving it, and even crying and getting into an argument with my mom and dad when it was time to leave, because I just wanted to keep listening to that song.
Sure.
And then lucky for me, my parents, they were like in a bowling league and would go out and, bowl a couple nights a week and stuff. And so my neighbor, a guy named Mickey Pogue, would come over and babysit. And Mickey, all he did was bring whatever the latest new single of the Beatles was, because he knew that the easiest way to babysit me and my brother both is just to play Beatle music and just play it the whole time. And so I grew up on the Beatles as new things came out, and as a child, just freaking out on them. And I didn't care about any other band. I didn't really want to listen to any other band either. I just thought it was the Beatles and everybody else.
Right.
And that's literally how I grew up. I can remember going to a store for one of my birthdays, 7 or 8, and I wanted to pick up whatever the new Beatles single was. And they were sold out of them. And they said, you want how about an Animals? And I was like, no, that's not the Beatles. I don't want animals, and that's how hardcore I was. So Beatles were everything for me musically growing up. I mean, I would sing along to every record and everything as they came out, and I would try to sound like them, try to sound like John Lennon and George Harrison mainly were my two faves. So Beatles, more than just an influence, they are the foundation of my musical being, period. Without them, I would not be who I am, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it definitely shows through, especially more on the solo stuff than the King's X stuff, but it shows through in the King's X stuff too. I'm sure you've, over the years, every review, there's some Beatles little mention here or there, but it definitely shows. I think it shows through a lot more on your solo stuff, because I think it's, where you kind of create all of it. It really focuses on your, like you're saying, your history, more or less, your history all the way back to it playing as a child. Now, Ty, listening to Shades, like I mentioned a little bit earlier at the beginning, it's very different than most of your stuff, and it's very different than Alien Beings. And I'll be the first one to admit, I did not hear the record in between, the one in 2020, because it's not on any of the streaming services or anything. But the last one I heard was Alien Beings, and this feels very different. It feels very, I don't know, in some parts in lifting, and then in other parts somber. So it just feels like a different record than Alien Beings. How to you was it different?
Well, for me, it was just a matter of I had just been through a real tough time. And then all of a sudden, all our touring got canceled right after that because of, COVID.
Right.
And we had already been off for 6 months or so. We had been off since July before COVID hit the next year.
Right.
And the reason we were off, well, we went to California in August that year, 2019. And we were supposed to leave from California to go on a European tour. And right when I was in California, leaving California, going home to get ready to leave for Europe, my mother gave me a call and said, you need to come home. And so turned out my dad was not doing well. And that at that moment, they didn't know how long he was going to live and that I should come home. So we canceled everything the rest of the year, and I went home for the rest of the year until he passed. So I had just gone through that, and we were getting ready to go out and get busy touring again when COVID hit. And so everything was shut down. All plans were shut down. And all of a sudden I was just sitting at home and thought, well, I can just keep going to the studio like I always do every day normally. And I might as well make use of this new off time and do another record. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. But because I was coming out of such a heavily emotional time, some of the first stuff I wrote was, pretty heavy dealing with that time. But as I went on, I realized and knew I needed to not make a record of just mourning. It's just too much,
Right.
So I just gave it a couple of spots of that and then moved on and started writing other stuff and developing other stuff and came up with a record that I intentionally wanted to be completely different than Alien Beings, but I still wanted it to have some of the heavy guitar elements and things that people liked about Alien Beings, but I wanted it musically to explore some new places. And that's what I was trying for. So when I hear people say what you just said, that makes me feel good that that's what you get from it, because that was the intention.
Very good, man. Well, Ty, like you just said, you wrote some of this, as you're grieving the loss of your father, and I've been through that myself. It is not fun. And when you're going through it, when I went through it, I'll say it this way: when I went through it, the only thing I wanted was to be left alone. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to hear, am I okay? I didn't want to hear any. I was like, just leave me alone. Let me process this way. For you, you obviously wrote music for it that you're sharing with the world. Is that cathartic or memorializing to share emotions of such a hard time? Or is it just where you were at the time and you just put it out there?
I think as far as my own mental state, it's just where I was and what came out because of it. But I was doing exactly what you're talking about, spending a lot of time alone,
Sure.
a lot of time walking alone, out in places just away from people and everything. And there was a lot of introspection during that time for sure. So I guess everybody kind of does that, that's just, at least that's one of the normal ways to mourn for many of us. But I'm like you, I like to be left alone. And I think it was sort of all of the above. I mean, I kind of wanted to memorialize, my dad.
Sure.
I kind of wanted to write something that captured something about the time we had together before he passed, because we ended up having just some really great time together, because I hadn't really lived at home since I was 17. I left for my first tour when I was 17. I hadn't even turned 18 yet when I left to go on my first tour. And I've been kind of busy and traveling and living away from Mississippi pretty much ever since. So since I was a child, I haven't really spent a lot of time at home. I'd only go home for 1 or 2 days or whatever to visit. And I ended up spending months, at home with both my folks. So it ended up being, some of the best time I've ever had with my dad, and definitely the most time I've had with him since I was a kid.
Sure.
Turned out to be really good. And so a lot of good things came from that too that aren't show up on the record. I'm trying to look at it and celebrate all the good and make note of the bad too, because it's all part of it.
No, and probably in some way too, it's a nice thing that you can do for your family, for your mom, and for the family to say, okay, well, here's this that I wrote about this, and and hopefully it gives you a good sense or a good feel too. No.
We'll see. I never worry about playing my music for my mother or my family. I don't really. We don't really talk much about King's X. I think when I was younger, they probably got fed up with King's X when we were so busy and people were showing up at their doors, Ty home and stuff like that they hadn't seen in 20 years. I think they at a certain point, I realized, I just need to keep that a separate world.
Sure.
And so I don't really even talk about that much with my family or play any of my music with my family unless they ask to hear it. My sister usually wants to hear it.
Okay.
She's usually the only one in the family that I think cares at all about hearing any of it, to be honest.
Very good, man. Well, Ty, obviously the first song that you've chosen to share with the public is Sister Genocide. Great tune, fun tune. Why was that one chosen, and why do you think it made sense as the first taste to give to fans?
Truth is, I told Joe, whatever you feel, Joe at Rat Pack Records.
Right.
Just whatever you feel about this, because I'm a little too close to it. And I don't know what song, if there is a song that represents the album. I don't think there really is a single song that represents the album. So it sort of didn't matter to me. And I just said, you pick, and I'll go along with it.
Okay.
Made it easy for me this time.
No question. Well, the interesting thing is, I know you're going to do 50 of these interviews and you're going to get 50 different answers on this. But like for me, the standout track is Best Day in a While, which is.
Oh, thank you. You're the second interview to say that out of about the last 5. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a stellar track and a stellar songwriting track. I mean, it might be one of the best things you've ever written, that I've heard. And I think I've heard everything, man. It's good stuff. So talk a little bit about that track, man. Tell me the story there.
Well, that's a song that was trying to capture some of that time during the few months I was home with my dad.
Right.
But some of the stuff we did. And that one's tough to talk about. Okay. Because it was the hardest song to write on the record. But it's a true story, and everything in it are things that really happened. And words that were said.
Right. Certainly. That makes sense. Well, Ty, obviously, man, you as well as every other musician on the planet has been negatively affected by the pandemic. It just has the musical world in chaos right now, and trying to figure it out and trying to, figure out what's next and plan and all that other stuff. Yeah. Right now, when you're looking at it, it might be opening up again, I guess. I don't know for sure, but when it does, what will be your priority? Is King's X got to go out and do dates because you guys have been off for so long, or do you try to put together a touring band and go play some solo shows, or a little of both, or what are you looking at?
Well, from May on, King's X has some things planned.
Okay.
And I don't really plan on doing anything before then as far as solo. It's been a tough time to try to put a solo band together just because of COVID,
Right.
and just getting people together and stuff has not been, I don't know, just hadn't felt right yet. But I think it is becoming that way now. And I know that King's X, we certainly are planning on being out there and doing these shows that we have booked this year. The thing has been holding us back, we had a show for April, actually, we were going to go do. And the thing holding us back from it is not really COVID, but an injury. I actually broke a finger that has, I've been doing physical therapy for a good while now, and it's just taken a long time to get it back. And it's on my left hand, my guitar playing hand.
Right.
So it stopped me from being able to play guitar, at a King's X level for many months now. But I'm working on it hard, and it's coming back, and I feel good about the way it's improving now. I feel like I've kind of rounded a corner in the last couple of weeks. And I'm just going to keep working on it, and we plan on doing all the rest of the shows this year other than the one in April we had to cancel.
Sure. See, this is where you take your inspiration from Tony Iommi. If Tony Iommi can do it, you can do it, right?
I've actually looked at some pictures of him and some tweets and during this time and got encouragement from it, and watched some live Black Sabbath on TV during this time too, and was amazed at how good his style and feel is, with what he's using to play.
Right. Exactly.
Just crazy.
It is, man. Well, Ty, we're talking a little bit about King's X, and obviously you're going to tour with King's X. It's been an awful long time since we had a record, man. 2008 or something, 14, 15 years or something.
Yep.
At this point, is King's X done as a creative entity? I mean, is it just now a touring entity for you guys, or is it one of those things that you guys always talk about? Well, when this happens, we'll get back together and we'll put something out, and then it just doesn't materialize.
No, we have an album in the can.
Okay.
We did during 2019 and continued to work on it during COVID, just at individual studios. Like I added some additional vocals down here and actually another guitar part on a song. And we sent tapes around. Jerry added some more vocals. Doug added some more vocals. And we also had Wally Farkas singing on the record, and he added some more.
Right.
But other than that stuff being done after we left California, the record's done.
Okay.
And it's already mastered and turned in, and there's a release date, and it's going to come out this year. I just can't say when yet.
Okay.
Record company, it's up to them to announce all that stuff and do the promotion and all that. But yeah, the plan is there's a new record out this year.
Okay.
And it's a record that we worked harder on than anything we've done since we were very young. And to me, is the best thing we've done in a very long time.
Okay, very good, man. That's that's really good news. That's news I think a lot of King's X fans will be thrilled to hear. I know, so many people that love the band say that kind of the same thing that I just asked you is, are they done? Are you guys, and I think that comes up a lot too, because the three of you away from King's X are productive. You obviously do records all the time. Certainly Doug is in 15 other bands as well as King's X, and does solid work, and Jerry does solo stuff too. But it's good to hear that King's X is coming back together as a creative element as well as a touring element, and it's great that you're still creating music. This new release, it is called Shades. It is Ty Tabor. It is out March 4th, so another week, and it comes out. And Ty, where should we tell people to go to keep up with you and tour dates and all that good stuff?
Well, you can either go to kingsxrocks.com for King's X shows, or actually the same shows are listed at tytabor.com also. Okay. and links to Rat Pack and all the ordering and all that stuff. Plus, it'll be released in all the normal platforms, iTunes and Amazon and whatever.
Very good. Well, one more time, the release is simply called Shades. It is Ty Tabor. It is out March 4th. And Ty, thanks so much for joining me here on CHRIS Akin Presents.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, Chris. Thanks.
Sure, man.